Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So look at a few more of these traits of the sifat ahlillah, of the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So based upon verse number 195 in Surah Al-Baqarah, hum alladhina anfaqu fi sabilillah. They're those who give out their wealth in the path of Allah. وَلَمْ يُلْقُوا بَأَيْدِيهِمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَ وَأَحْسَنُوا. And they don't cast their hands into destruction, but they are people of ihsan. And then based upon verse number 197, هُمَ الَّذِينَ تَزَوُّرُوا بِخَيْرِ الزَّادِ. They are those who seek the greatest of provision. What is the greatest of provision? Taqwa. The greatest of provision is taqwa. So think about all the time that we spend for other types of provision. The greatest provision, the greatest and most important thing that we should spend our time doing is seeking the provision of taqwa. هم الذين ذكروا الله كذكرهم آباءهم أو أشد ذكرا. Based upon verse number 200. There are those who praise Allah. And the word here is dhakuru, but you could translate it here as praise. Those who praise Allah the way that in the pre-Islamic period they used to praise their forefathers, and that even praise Him greater than that. And then based upon verse number 201, هُمَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا, they are those who say and supplicate this prayer, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. This comprehensive, one of the most comprehensive prayers of all that we should recite regularly. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. Allah, give us good in this world. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً, and good in the hereafter, and save us from the fire, protect us from the fire. هُمَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا اللَّهَ وَعَلِمُوا أَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يُحْشَرُونَ. They are those who have taqwa of Allah and know with absolute certainty that they will be gathered unto Him. هُمُ الَّذِينَ بَاعُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. باع يبيع literally is to sell. These are people that sold themselves completely. Normally think of like we sold our soul like to the devil or to the dunya. That's the bad type of selling of the soul. What we want is to sell our souls to Allah. In other words, is that ba'u anfusahum ibtigha mardatillah, is that they dedicate themselves completely to seeking the good pleasure of Allah. That's how they are. And imagine it just in Ramadan. We heard this verse being recited, or heard this verse being discussed. Just from the nafha of Ramadan, barakah of Ramadan, Allah just blessed you to that reality to come to you. Just one verse like that. What if just one verse we hear and just hits the heart? And Allah Ta'ala blesses us to put into practice. And this becomes our reality, is that we've completely devoted ourselves to seeking the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. هم الذين دخلوا في السلم كافة. They are those who have entered into silm, like submission, wholeheartedly, complete submission. وَلَمْ يَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Nor do they follow the footsteps of shaitan, his whisperings. هم الذين علموا أن نصر الله قريب. Based upon verse number 214, there are those who know that the victory of Allah is close. Sometimes we wonder that when is the victory coming? In all of its manifestations, for us, families, people that we know, important causes, justice in the world, the condition of Muslims, we should know that the victory of Allah is close. There's a way that we're supposed to be, and that becomes our primary focus, is how to be the way that we need to be for the victory of Allah to come. هم الذين فعلوا الخير. Based upon verse number 215. There are those who do good. فعلوا الخير. This is the way of the believer. As a believer, لا يشبع من خير. He never takes his full of good. Just everything that comes from him is just good. He says good things. He does good things. He just constantly helping people and doing good of all different sorts. It's the nature of the believer. هم الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله يرجون رحمة الله. Based upon verse number 218, there are those who believe and migrate and strive in the cause of Allah, hoping for the mercy of Allah. So this is one of the verses that when we think about this meaning, is that this is why we differentiate between true hope and false hope. So the difference between true hope and false hope. And the difference is with true hope, you have hope in something that it is that you want to attain, but you do everything that you can to attain that thing. False hope is where you desire something, you want something, but you just expect it just to come out of the thin air. That's just going to just appear without putting the effort in. So when we say Inna ladina amanu, this is verse 218. Indeed, those who believe and those who migrate and strive in the cause of Allah, ulaika yarjuna rahmatullah. They're the ones who are truly hoping for the mercy of Allah. In other words, that true hope lies in action and doing everything that is that you can to attain the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. And no doubt we will always fall short. And even if we're not doing what we can, doesn't mean that we despair. But real hope is we're doing everything that it is that we can to achieve and attain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala bless us all to be from those who receive His mercy. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. This month, may Allah ta'ala open up the doors of His mercy to all of us. May we all be able to receive. And anything that is in our hearts, or anything that we do, or anything that we say, or any grudges that we have, or anything that's getting in the way, all of the mawani' al-rahmah, they're preventatives of mercy. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from all of those things and bless us to receive the greatest of portions of mercy. And then the more mercy you receive, the more mercy you can give. And nothing is more important. When we talked about caring some time ago, if you don't have a heart filled with mercy, how can you care about anyone? But as they always say, فاقد الشيء لا يعطي. So you need someone to lend you $1,000, but they have $50 in their bank account. If you don't have something, you can't give something. فاقد الشيء لا يعطي. You have to have something in order to be able to give something. How can we show mercy to people if we haven't received mercy from Allah Ta'ala? And this is why that no one received mercy like our Prophet ﷺ. And he had the greatest portion of the mercy of Allah, and thus he was sent as a mercy to all of the world. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Okay, bismillah. Let's continue our study of At-Tibyan, this very blessed book, an extremely beneficial book of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala. Allah benefit us through him, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Tafadhal.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. From the book Etiquette with the Quran by Imam Abu Zakaria Yahya An-Nawawi نفعنا الله به وبعلومه في الدارين آمين إلى أن قال. Chapter 4, page 17. Not possessed of arrogance. The teacher should not be arrogant towards his student. Instead, he should be gentle and humble. Many well-known accounts have been related about the importance of having humility with ordinary individuals. So how is it with those who are like one's own children, especially given what they are doing, occupied with the Quran? All of this in addition to what they hold over him already, including the right of companionship and the right to go to him repeatedly. It has been related that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Be gentle with your student and with your teacher." Ayub al-Sakhtiyani rahimahullah said, the teacher should put dirt on his head out of humbleness towards Allah mighty and majestic.
La ilaha illallah. Which one of us would ever do that? Allahu Akbar. So this is under the section of not possessed of arrogance, and this is definitely one of the important traits of the teacher and the one who is instructing. وينبغي ألا يتعظم على المتعلمين. And يتعظم is one of the ways you would say that be arrogant in the Arabic language. بل يلين لهم. Instead, he should be gentle. Yalin, lean. Right? If something's laying, it's soft and pliable. And sometimes people in their characters is hard, inflexible. They don't move at all. But we're supposed to be laying, soft, easygoing. There's no takalluf. We don't have unrealistic expectations of people and hakada. And one of the greatest wisdoms that we have to learn is the degrees of brotherhood and companionship in our relationships. And there's degrees. Let's just say you could go on the scale of 1 to 10. If someone's really a 4, you try to make them a 7, you're going to lose them. And there might be benefit in you just having a relationship of a 4 with someone. Other people will be 6s. Other people will be 8s. There's different, right? I'm not saying you go around and classify, oh, this person's a 4. This person's a 2. The point is that don't try to force things. And carry yourself in a way where you can be befriended and you're easygoing. You're easy to get along with. This is how you establish community. This is how you create bonds and good relationships. وَيَتَوَاضَعْ لَهُمْ. So we can understand that the teacher should be gentle. But he goes on top of that to say, وَيَتَوَاضَعُ لَهُمْ. The teacher should also be humble towards his students. Right? Should be humble towards his students. And then he says, فَقَدْ جَاءَ فِي التَّوَاضِعِ لِأَحَدِ النَّاسِ أَشْيَاءُ كَثِيرَةٌ مَعْرُوفَةٌ. So he's saying here is that there are many well-known accounts about how important it is to have humility with ordinary people, with all different types of people. So how then should it be when you be with your students, when we had previously said that you should treat them like your own children, right? And with your children, you tend to be very relaxed, and that some of the protocols that might be there in other types of settings are not there. The children see you behind the scenes. They see you at home. You're not dressed all the time, dressed like you dress in public. You're dressed down behind the scenes, and there's more of a relaxed environment and so forth. So his point here is that we should have humility. We should be very humble. SubhanAllah. Anyone that has spent time with real teachers is exactly how they are. Extremely humble. Remember the Mauritanian scholars is that they didn't even call each other by names like Sheikh or Ustad or Sidi or Fulan or whatever. They call each other by their first names. And they're like, ulama. And they would just say, Yani, Fulan, just call each other by their first name. And never even crossed their mind like, why aren't you calling me Sheikh? Right? Someone who's seeking titles, and especially in a context like we have in the United States of America, which one of us deserves any title? Is it Titles, yes, they have their place in a balanced fashion, but we should never desire titles. If you ever sign your name, you sign your name. You don't sign your name Sheikh Fulan, right? Or Imam Fulan, or so and so. Sign your name Fulan, Fulan. What I've seen our teachers do is Al-Abd al-Aqal, the most impoverished servant. Fulan ibn Fulan. This is the way that the true people of Allah are. And he says here that ma'hum ali min ishtighal bil Quran, because you should even more so be humble towards them, because they're people that are occupied with the learning the Quran. Ma'hum ali min haqqi as-suhba wa taraddud ilayhi, and then also in terms of what they have, the right of companionship, and that are interacting with them repeatedly. وقد جاء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, there's a hadith that has been read that the Prophet ﷺ said, Linu liman tu'allimun. Linu. So those of you learning sarf, okay, this is that lana yalinu. If you're going to put it in the command form, linu, if it's for jama'. Linu liman tu'allimun. Be gentle with those you're teaching. وَلِمَنْ تَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُ. And with those that you are learning from, yani your teachers. وعن أبو أيوب السختياني رحمه الله تعالى ينبغي للعالم أن يضع التراب على رأس تواضع لله عز وجل. So the teacher, scholar, should put dirt on his head out of humbleness towards Allah Mighty and Majestic. So I remember when shortly after arriving to the blessed city of Tarim, there was a class that we had with Sayyid Habib Omar, and we were reading Minhaj al-Abidin of Imam al-Ghazali. And he has a section in there on Tawbah. And he describes the way that you should make Tawbah. And one of the things that he says you should do is you should go far off to a place where no one sees you. And he says you should put your face in the dirt, and then take dirt and sprinkle it over your head. As you're putting your face on the dirt, sprinkling dirt over your head to humble yourself. He says, and then you mention your sins one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. And you know, he goes into great lengths about the process, and that was one of the things that you have to do. And then we came back the next day to class, and Habib Omar asked everyone, who did that? He made everyone raise their hands. He said, who did that? And only a few people raised their hands. And then next class, who did it? And as for 2 or 3 of the classes, he asked, who actually did that? Meaning that we don't read over these books to just read over them for the sake of reading them. It's that when he says this, as this could be put into practice by just remaining humble, right, and recognizing that this is what we all come from, is the dirt, and not wanting preferential seating, that preferring to sit on the ground and be closer to the earth and this type of thing, and and so forth and so on. It has all of those meanings, but it doesn't negate actually the literal meaning of this as well, of doing things like this to humble oneself, not in front of people, but behind the scenes, and that it's important to humble oneself. And one of the best ways to humble oneself is to keep the bathrooms clean. And that would be a great thing for a student to do regularly, is that he be the one or she be the one who cleans the bathrooms in the living quarters, wherever you're living. Or they be the ones who clean up after other people, do the dirty work that people don't want to do in the bathrooms and so forth. And this is one of the good ways to break yourself. And these are the people that will benefit ultimately from the knowledge that is that they're seeking. Okay, and then we'll move to the next session, disciplining the student.
Disciplining the student. The teacher should gradually discipline the student in order that he have excellent manners and a pleasing disposition, that he struggle against his lower self, nafs, applying subtle ways. The teacher should habituate him as to safeguard all of his students' affairs, both private and public. The teacher should urge him repeatedly in words and in deeds to have sincerity and perfect intentions and to be vigilant of Allah Most High at all times. The teacher should inform him that through all of this, the lights of spiritual knowledge will open to him. His heart will be opened also, and the well springs of wisdom and subtleties will gush forth from his heart, and Allah will bless him in his work and state, and give him success in what he says and does.
So this is the subsection on, excuse me, the ta'deeb of the muta'allim, right? And so it is the teacher's duty to teach the student adab. He translates it here as disciplining the student, inculcating adab in the student. We're helping them refine their character. And how do we do this? He says, وَيَنْبَغِي أَنْ يُؤَدِّبَ الْمُتَعَلِّمُ عَلَى التَّدْرِيجِ. Notice here, his words are chosen very carefully. The teacher should yu'addab, this is the verbal form of this, addaba yu'addibu, teach adab, inculcate manners in the muta'allim, but ala tadrij, gradually. You can't just expect someone overnight to become a person of great adab. It takes time. It takes time. And that now the expectations should be different. Okay, some of the things that you're missing the first 2 or so months of your sleep trackers, okay, it's still new, it's still early. As you get later into the year, okay, you have less and less an excuse. As the year really goes on, it's like, oh, okay, you're not really taking this seriously. And that we can't put someone in a position to teach or to help if they're not doing the suluk tracker, even if they be the most knowledgeable people. That is a prerequisite for anyone who wants to spend time teaching the community and helping them, is that the suluk tracker is the bare minimum, the bare bones, bare minimum. If someone's going to be teaching and you're not doing the suluk tracker, you're not suitable to teach, even kids. That's a prerequisite here. If we're going to put someone in a position, it's a responsibility. We're going to be learning from you. And what's the point of knowledge if you're not putting your knowledge into practice, or you're not focusing on your spiritual state? So in and of yourself, yeah, we might be easy with you, but if you want to go further in the da'wah and to really serve, you have to be doing the suluk tracker. You should be doing every single bubble. And rarely by the end of the year, occasionally missing here and there, and quickly trying to make up for it. And really, you should be doing much more than that. But we'll start with the suluk tracker. But if someone wants to reach a position where you're giving back to the community in a position of teaching for whatever age groups, because that's a prerequisite. It's irresponsible for us to let people teach if they're not doing the suluk tracker. Right, so this is the teacher's job, is to gradually inculcate this in the students. Bil-adab as-saniya. And these, that excellent manners, washiyam al-mardiyah, and that these great traits that we're supposed to have. And that وَرِيَاضَةِ نَفْسِهِ بِالدَّقَائِقِ الْخَفِيَّةِ. This is very precise language, right? And helping the process of disciplining the soul with in very subtle ways, applying subtle ways. There's very subtle ways that this is done, and it's a very gentle process. And in general, the scholars of tarbiyah are the most gentle of people because they realize things take time, and they're very patient. And that in the beginning, the students tend to, there's a lot of fluctuation. Right? But the secret to flattening out the fluctuation, if that makes sense, is spiritual struggle. If you don't put spiritual struggle in, the fluctuation is not going to get any better. But if you put spiritual struggle in, this is what happens. In the beginning, there's a lot of fluctuation. But then this line represents the spiritual struggle. Then it starts to flatten out. Where eventually then, what we want is exponential increase in every moment. That's possible with enough spiritual struggle and relying upon Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. But it's a very subtle process, and it has to be tailored, excuse me, to each individual. And different people have different needs, and different people are at different stages. And everything needs to be put in its proper place. And then he says, is that وَيُعَوِّدُ الصِّيَانَ فِي جَمِيعِ أُمُورِهِ الْبَاطِنَةِ وَالْجَلِيَةِ. And the teacher should habituate him so as to safeguard all of his students' affairs, both private and public. In other words, is that he wants all of his affairs to be arranged. If the teacher finds out that students are doing something in public or that they are putting themselves in a certain situation, they should advise them on those things. That might not be the best thing for you. Why don't you consider this? Or have you ever thought about this? This is the teacher's job. And now whether or not people accept what is being said, advice or not, that's ultimately on them. But if they're going to be serious students, they should listen to what their teachers and their elders and of course their parents tell them. ويعود الصيانة في جميع أموره الباطنة والجلية يعني جميع أموره. So in traditional Islamic context, the teachers were very active in the lives of the students. ويحرضه بأقواله وأفعاله المتكررات على الإخلاص والصدق وحسن النيات. So what does he do? The teacher should urge him repeatedly in words and in deeds to have sincerity and to perfect their intentions and to be vigilant of Allah at all times. ومراقبة الله تعالى في جميع اللحظات. This is the teacher's job. Always encourage him to be sincere. ويعرف أن بذلك تنفتح عليه أبواب المعارف. But why is this so important? And again, Imam Manawi is a master of knowledge. And he knew firsthand the fruit of sincere talab, of sincerely seeking knowledge for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. Because the teacher is supposed to teach the student that the teacher should inform him that through all of this, the lights of spiritual knowledge will open up to him. وَيَنْشَرِحُ صَدْرَهُ. And his heart will open. And wisdom and the well springs of wisdom and subtleties will gush forth from his heart. And Allah will bless him in his work and state and give him success in what he says and does. Oh, Akbar. What else do we want? وَيُعَرِّفُهُ أَنَّ بِذَلِكَ تَنْفَتِحَ عَلَيْهِ أَبْوَابُ الْمَعَارِفِ. As it is through this, everything was previously mentioned here. The adab and refining of the character, all those things that were previously mentioned. Is that this is the secret to have the doors of knowledge be opened up to one. And for the heart, far from being qasi and constricted and hard, inshara. If you don't have a heart that is munshara, how are you going to be able to help people? Can't. If you're grumpy and irritable and just bothered by everything and your heart's hard, you're coarse, you have bad character, how can you ever benefit anyone? You're going to be a liability. You're going to push more people away than you are going to help. Right? This da'wah requires tahammul. You have to bear a lot of difficulties. You have to bear people's bad character, bear their complaints, even if they're totally misplaced. And that all these different things, bear so many different things, the fitin in the community and all these different things, you have to just bear it. And the secret of success is to maintain your principles. If you deviate from your principles, that's when you might go astray. But the secret of the continuity of the da'wah is to adhere to your principles. If you adhere to your principles, Allah will keep the da'wah going on your particular hands. And if not, He'll maybe take it from you and spread the khair on someone else's hands. The secret is to maintain your principles. And the principles are the most difficult thing of all to stick to. Because you have to be able to go against the nafs. The nafs, the comment that was just made is so unfair. Zip your lip. Bear it. Don't say anything. Right? People are speaking ill against you, that subtly, subconsciously, maliciously, or not maliciously, working against you, causing problems in the organization, causing problems with other people. You have to genuinely still want the greatest good for everyone, and be patient, and be tolerant. This is the way our teachers are. Our Prophet knew the munafiqeen. The Prophet knew the munafiqeen. SubhanAllah. Still, had to deal with them in the way that he was commanded to deal with them, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And most of the people we're talking about are not munafiqeen. There probably are some implants here from the FBI and some other agents. I mean, that's, anyone doesn't think that, doesn't know the way these people work, and probably most of our phones are tapped and this type of thing. But none of this matters because we're transparent. We have a job, and our job is to learn the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ and to put it into practice. Khalas. Our job is very clear, totally transparent. There isn't some type of hidden agenda. The only hidden agenda is some of the secrets of wilaya and some of the things that you don't speak in public about because people might not understand. That's the secret agenda, is the special meanings that Allah Ta'ala that brings to the heart in relation to the awliya and the salihin. Other than that, khalas. There's nothing that you hide from people. Now, so this affair takes patience. And these things that you can't really teach in a formal setting, you have to experience them. But if you can't be patient in a teaching setting and go to your classes on time and learn over a period of time, then you're definitely not going to be able to do that. Right? That's a higher degree. There are some markers outward that can let you know whether you're going to be able to be like that in the future when you're in a position. But you'll get pulled in so many different directions, right? And this eats away at you, and this eats you. And if you don't have a way of dealing with all of that, and to have internal strength that doesn't derive from you, that comes from Allah, and then the barakah of Rasulullah, and you're sent to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through your teachers. Without them, you'd break completely. You last 3 days, maybe a week, a couple weeks. You throw in the towel, I'm just going to work and just avoid all this. It's too much. I'm just going to get a job and do this on the side. If you really want to dedicate your life to this, yani, khalas. Take sacrifice. And you might not have a lavish salary where you can have multiple cars and nice accommodations and so forth. Right? But this is why, in the end, only a few people will end up doing it. But those people, when it's all said and done, wait till you see what Allah Ta'ala has in store for them in the hereafter. And everything they sacrificed, compared to whatever people received here in this world, is incomparable in terms of what it is they're going to receive with Allah Ta'ala because of what they left. And then the bigger problem is that when Allah Ta'ala starts opening up the doors of the dunya for you. That's actually the bigger problem. The companion said, we were tried with defeat and we were able to remain patient. We were tried with victory. They saw victory as a trial. We were tried with victory and we found it difficult to remain patient. Right, so sometimes when the floodgates open up for you, success in the da'wah and that worldly things and so forth, excuse me, oftentimes that's an even greater challenge. Allahu Akbar. So, وَيَنْشَرِحْ صَدْرُهُ. If you don't have an expanded heart, that was the whole tangent. How can you? And then look at, why did Moses ask for this? رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. Oh Allah, expand my heart. Because he's a Nabi and a Rasul. If you're going to give da'wah, you have to have an expanded heart. You can't just be bothered by every little person. And if we can't even get along with 100 people, 150 people in a local community, how are we going to go out beyond all this and actually serve the people who need to be served? It's laughable. Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah. وَيَتَّفَجَّرْ مِنْ الْقَلْبِ يَنَابِعِ الْحِكَمِ وَالْلَطَائِفِ. When you have the right adab, is that a spring of wisdom and subtle knowledge will pour forth from your heart. Allahu Akbar. وَيُبَارَكَ لَهُ فِي عِلْمِ وَحَالِهِ. And then Allah Ta'ala will place blessing in the knowledge of that individual in his state. Imam Nawawi lived how many years? 45 years. And think about how important his scholarship is to this day. It's as if he's speaking about himself. وَيُوَفَّقْ. He'll be given enabling grace فِي أَفْعَالِهِ وَأَقْوَالِهِ. In things that he does and things that he says. No. And then he's going to talk about the hukm of ta'neem, the legal ruling of ta'neem.
The communal obligation of teaching. Teaching is a communal obligation. If only one individual is right for the task, then it becomes his personal obligation. But in the context of a community in which there is a group of people through whom the duty of education may be discharged, they are all obliged. If all of them refuse, then all have sinned. If some of them establish education, then the sin falls from the rest. If one of them is requested to teach but refuses, the preponderant of two opinions is that he is not a sinner, although it is offensive for him to refuse without excuse. Resolved.
Okay. So now he just have this very short subsection on the hukam. Hukam, the plural of which is ahkam, the legal ruling of ta'lim, of teaching. And he says here, ta'liman wa ta'limin fardu kifaya. This is a communal obligation. Now, when you bring the internet into the picture here, is it what do you do for people that don't have any local teachers? Is that fard kifaya fulfilled by online learning? That's a question that needs research. And either way, internet learning is a band-aid and should never replace learning in person. And while I surely would like to offer that even full-time tracks for people that can't make it here in person, and there's ways of doing that with technology to get people, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Even if academically they're the same as the students who are in person, there's things that you'll miss. It's still better than not learning. So the internet, from this perspective, is a blessing because there's people that learn. I have someone told me who runs an online organization that he had a student from Tel Aviv who was a secret Muslim in a Jewish household that would secretly take classes for their online platform. Right? So there's no doubt that there's blessings. There's people all throughout the world who don't have local teachers. But the ummah needs to wake up. And let's just think in the context of the United States, is that people need local teachers. They need people to spend time with. And what a difference when you're with your teachers and they're accessible. You can ask them questions and you spend time with them and you benefit from them. This is a fard kifaya. So think about the sin right now as we speak nationwide because there's so many places where there's Muslims that don't have teachers. And then put that into perspective when you think about, say, for instance, wanting to build what it is that we want to build here, where we might have room for somewhere from 200 to 400 students. That's a tiny fraction of what you actually really need. Right? Even if you had 400 students, what is that compared to the smallest universities that are out there? The point there is not to belittle it. The point is to show how much work you and I need to do over the next 50 years. That there needs to be that hundreds of places of learning and then thousands of branches of the major places of learning all throughout the country. In North America, Canada, America, Latin America, Central America, South America, all over. Is that this needs to be there and all throughout the Muslim world, wherever there are Muslims. It's a fard kifaya. And what that means is, if only one individual is right for the task, then it becomes his personal obligation. So if you're living in a community and there's something that you can teach, you can't go beyond your limits, teach what it is you can teach, but you can't just say, oh no, I don't want to teach. It becomes an individual obligation for you. But in the context of a community in which there is a group of people through whom the duty of education may be discharged, they are all obliged. If all of them refuse, then all have sinned. And those that have the ability to teach. If some of them establish education, then the sin falls from the rest. If one of them is requested to teach but refuses, the preponderance of the two opinion is that he is not a sinner, although it is offensive for him to refuse without excuse. Tamam? And then the section on في حرص المعلم على تعليم طلابه.
Resolve to teach. It is recommended that the teacher be fully committed to teaching his students, preferring it over his personal worldly matters that are not critical. It is recommended that he empty his heart of all preoccupying matters, and they are many and known. While sitting for their recitation, it is recommended that he be resolved to making them understand. He should give each student what is suitable for him, that is, He should not give a greater workload to one who cannot bear the increase, nor should he lessen the load for one who can indeed bear the addition. He should request the students to repeat what they have memorized. Moreover, he should praise a student whose excellence is manifest, as long as there is no problem with conceit or something else that may be feared of him. He should gently admonish whoever falls short in his studies, as long as he does not fear alienating him. Never should a teacher envy a student for excelling, nor harbor thoughts what Allah has bestowed upon him is excessive. This is because envying even strangers is strictly unlawful. How is it then when envying a student who is like one's own son, and whose excellences shall cause his teacher to reap abundant reward in the hereafter and excellent praise in this world? Allah alone brings success.
Allahu Akbar. So yustahab, it is recommended للمعلم, for the teacher, أن يكون حريصا على تعليمهم. He should be fully committed to teaching them. Right? Teaching is not just something you do here and there. It's a way of life, and it requires an immense amount of investment, and you have to be present. It's not like you just come and do your thing and go home and that's it. No, it's not a job. It's not a career. We shouldn't look at it as a job or a career. It's a life. It's a way of being, and that this is how it should be that's seen. And the teacher should be haris, fully devoted, fully committed to teaching them. مؤثرا لذلك على مصالح نفسه الدنيوية التي ليست بالضرورية. Preferring it over his personal worldly matters that are not critical. It is recommended he empty his heart of all preoccupying matters, since they are many and known, while sitting for the recitation. So everyone has needs. You have doctor's appointments. People have bills to pay. They have to service their car. They have to go get groceries. They have to go somewhere. Yani, everybody has needs. But what he's saying here is that we should prefer teaching over all of these things, and push these things to the side if possible, and to the extent possible. Now, if you're married, you have to balance that a little bit more. That learn, whether it's the husband with the wife or the wife with the husband, how to build a strong foundation where there's mutual understanding, when you know that there might be times that you fall short in some of these things. But if you have a strong foundation, then inshallah ta'ala, you'll be good. Because sometimes it's very rare that both husband and wife are actually fully devoted to the da'wah. That's rare. There are examples of that. Usually it's one is more devoted than the other. It's a great blessing to have someone fully devoted. But there needs to be mutual understanding, tending to the needs of each other and so forth, and putting everything in its proper place. What he's saying here is that the more the standard of really being a teacher is that we should be willing to put the students and their needs and teaching before our own personal benefit. Right? And that's the spirit of living the life of teaching, is that the students come first, that teaching the classes come first. In other words, part of that is like you don't miss classes. Even if you're sick, you try not to miss classes. Even if you're sick, if you still can, you try to go with the intention of shifa. That's how some of the people were before us. And that obviously we can't live up to the standard of our teachers, or we'd probably die if we really tried to emulate them the way they were. Is that they'll come back from an extremely busy travel and then boom, hit the ground running. Other people would expire if they tried to do that too much. But we try to resemble them. The point being is that this comes first. So meaning if you have to arrange travel, if you have to arrange an appointment, you try to do all of that outside of the time of teaching. You give preference to the class. You give preference to taking care of the students, because you don't want to be in class and your heart be thinking about other stuff. You want to free your heart of the worldly. And he says here, وَهِيَ كَثِيرًا مَعْرُوفًا. There are many and they're very well known, all of the various types of preoccupations. وَأَنْ يَكُونَ حَرِيصًا عَلَى تَفْهِيمِهِمْ. This is so incredibly beautiful. He said is that it is recommended that he be resolved to making them understand. The teacher should be concerned that you want the students to understand. The point is not to come and deliver an amazing dars and then the students didn't hear or understood what you said. The teacher should be concerned to help them understand. When يعطي كل إنسان منهم ما يليق به, and he gives each one of the students, he tailors his instruction to their individual needs, what is suitable to them, literally. And so this is why the teachers have to know the students, know the needs of the students. And he says here, so that different students require different things. That he should not give a greater workload to the one who cannot bear the increase, nor should he lessen the load for one who can indeed bear the addition. So sometimes you see someone who is excelling. You should give them more. And you see someone who's falling behind a little bit. Then you don't put too much on their plate. You find that balance. And you never know. The one who is falling behind a little bit might be in a better state with Allah than the one who's excelled. There's outward criteria and there's inward criteria. And we put everything in its proper place. And then he should request the students to repeat what they have memorized. So this is not like college where you pass a test and it's over. You should consider your studies to be cumulative. What does that mean? At any moment, anything that you've studied in the past, you should be able to, if asked, to respond. So if you've already taken an exam on a Nahu book that you've done before, or a book of fiqh, or an Arabic section, I said you should know that. So it's cumulative. You want to keep up. And if you forget, you go back and review. If you forget, you go back and review. وَحَيَاةَ الطَّالِبِ الْمُذَاكَرَةِ. The life of a student is review. Review. And there's serious barakah in review. Serious barakah in review. Sometimes when you review something you studied 2 years ago for even like an hour, it might stick with you from there on out, that you might have forgotten some of those things within that past 2 years, but then from the barakah of review, you never forget it after that. And review is good. And if in other professions that they require you to constantly keep up with the developments of the profession, then how much more so is that important when it comes to religious knowledge? Always being on your toes and keeping up with reviewing what it is that you've already studied and learning what it is that you still need to know. And then he says here that you should praise a student who is excelling, with the condition, though, that you don't fear that it's going to cause him to have ujub, where he's impressed with himself. Right? And just as you should gently admonish students who fall short in their studies, as long as you don't fear alienating them. So if you come down too hard on people, they're going to go. Right? But you should admonish them. No, you got to take your studies seriously. It's an opportunity. You admonish them. But in a way that you don't alienate them. And then he talks about something which is ajib. How could a teacher ever have envy for one of his students? But never should a teacher envy a student for excelling, nor harbor thoughts that what Allah has bestowed upon him is excessive. And the real teacher is the one who wants to devote himself entirely to teaching, to try to do as much as he possibly can, to summarize what took him years to acquire in the shortest amount of time, so his students can learn all of that and then excel far beyond where he was. The real teacher wants his students to exceed him, that go way beyond where he stopped. Those are the real teachers. And that if they do that, he's happy with that. And how could you not be happy? The reward is going to come to you as a result of that. And then he ends it by saying that Allah alone brings success. La ilaha illallah. May Allah Ta'ala give us all success, to give us tawfiq. Ya Arhamar Rahim, benefit us through this blessed book, and bless us to dedicate ourselves to this affair. To bless us with the internal strength that we need, and to bless our hearts to be completely pure, to make us able to bear difficulties for his sake, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through having good character, be a means to bring people together, be a means to take people from a bad state to a better state, and through good character, may Allah make us means of that, taking bad behavior to good behavior, and mistakes to things that are right. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
يقول الهاشمي حامد طلبنا الله عطا زايد بمن قد قربوا مولاه شفاعة يا رسول الله. حبيبي المصطفى ذخري وهو كنزي وهو فخري مخلد في الحشا مثواه شفاعة يا رسول الله. يظنوني يحب ليلى وحبي قط ما يحلى إلا في النبي محلاه شفاعة يا الله. إمام الرسل هادينا ومن غيره ينجينا شفيع الخلق عند الله الشفاعة يا. بذكره يحصل المطلب ويصفو العيش والمشرب لأنه خير خلق الله الشفاعة يا الله. وفي الأزمة وفي الشدة معنا طه النبي عده ومن لو شك بتحدى الشفاعة يا رسول. وفي الأزمة وفي الشدة معنا طه النبي عده ومن لو شك بتحدى الشفاعة يا رسول. محمد صفوة الأمة محمد كاشف الغمة. محمد صفوة الأمة محمد كاشف الغمة. محمد ربنا أعطى الشفاعة يا رسول. ويوم الحشر ما بنفزع معنا طه النبي يشفع حبيبي الله عظيم الجاه شفاعة يا. والليلة المدد وافر معنا المصطفى حاضر نفح طيب لنا وريا الشفاعة يا. واذكر يوم في الروضة أنا شفت النبي يقضى في المحراب ومصلى شفاعة يا. ومعنا أمنا الكبرى تبدل عسرنا يسرا خديجة اللي حباها الله شفاعة يا. وبنت المصطفى الزهراء بحال أولادها أدرى وكل من هو محب ترعى شفاعة يا الله. ولا ننسى أبو السبطين ذخري والحسن والحسين مددهم من رسول الله شفاعة.
وحاشا ربي يحرمنا بطه واللي في الغنى وهلي أولياء الله شفاعيا إلى وجه النبي ننظر في المحشر معون وحشر إلى وجه النبي ننظر في المحشر معون وحشر ونسعد كلنا برؤيا شفاعيا لله عليه صلوا مدى الأوقات محمد سيد السادات وآل واسعين الجاه شفاعة يا رسول الله. بما علمتنا ربي علمنا